Hi, it's Mark Thompson again. Thanks for joining us. This is the eighth in the series on gourd history. And we have taken some of the slides from my book about the bottle gourd. And now we move to where did the gourd image actually show up in art? Does it reflect the fact that gourds were widely used and needed during ancient times? This is what I found. The earliest uses for gourds was thousands of years ago, and sure enough, it's reflected in art as it starts appearing. In Peru, for example, 100 AD. And there's lots of recorded images of gourds in North America as well and around the world, and then Europe. When Europe received gourds and gourd plants, gourd seeds from after Columbus's visit and after explorers were there. So let's move on now to some of the images. Here are two gourds. Well, they're not gourds. They're actually pottery made to look like gourds, because as clay became used for making containers, replacing gourds, they made them to look like gourds. These two examples are from the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. The interesting 1000 AD in the U.S., where the massive Mississippian culture was taking place along the Mississippi River, this burger figure was a small clay, like 4 inches, and households and temples, etc., used this in their ceremonies. And here we have one that was dug up at the Cahokia Mounds Historical Site, just east of St. Louis. This is a very interesting figure because the hunter, the fisher, is leaning over, and sure enough, on the back of this clay item are depicted the vines of the gourds, and then actually the gourds themselves are sitting on their back. Some of the earliest depictions from Europe, of course, don't occur till much later, 1500, because they didn't have the gourds. This famous fresco in Italy shows gourds depicted along with the hero figures on these wall paintings. Early books started to depict and describe and talk about gourds. Here's a book on early book on plants, 1542, and sure enough, Cucurbita, the species, is depicted, as it is in this very famous book, which I talk about in my History of Gourds book, where he goes through and had experimented with gourds and had drawn many different types of gourds, such that it was a whole book of gourd illustrations, and he was recognized by the king, Louis XV, for this masterpiece. Here are some of the paintings where you can clearly see gourds being used in very practical, everyday manners. Here's a soldier, injured soldier, that has gone begging, and he has gourds tied to his waist. And we have lots of paintings and photographs and drawings of Native Americans where gourds are figured prominently in the picture. Here's one where there's a huge, large bottle gourd, could be containing corn, seeds, water. This was found at the digs at the Fort Raleigh National Historic Site in North Carolina. There are a number of these sites that go back to find not only early settlers, but of course the indigenous peoples, and they find gourd remains, mostly seeds. Here's a more contemporary drawing depicting the famous sun dance of the tribes in the United States, and sure enough, here are the gourd rattles, which are still used in powwows today. Here's another depiction by this artist, Agua Teixeira, a Pueblo artist in New Mexico, with the bow and arrow along with the gourd rattle. Early times, of gourds and depictions of gourds can be found many different places. Here's a decorated lime gourd from New Guinea. So that's just to give you a taste of the many images you can find. Do a search or look at YouTube. There are descriptions of paintings of the early times in this country, especially, and the amazing use of the gourd. Thanks for joining me.